Welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, it's so great to have you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Well, I have the pleasure of having a wonderful actress, director, and producer here as my guest today. Her name is Dorothy Lyman, and I hope that you enjoy getting to know her. And Dorothy, thanks so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thanks, Deborah. Always happy to talk to you.
Well, you know what? Lauren Yarger, who I know that you like and adore, as I do too, the co-founder of the League of Professional Theater Women, recommended that you were one of the best people to have as a guest. So I really want to thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, what I like to do in the beginning of the show is to introduce the guest to the viewer. So why don't you take us back into your background? Let us get to know you.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I came east to Sarah Lawrence College when I was 18. I knew I wanted to be an actor, and so that's what I studied. And I began to work. Luckily, I got my first TV job just one day a month on a show called Search for Tomorrow, and when it was still on the air. And that started quite a good run that I had doing soaps. I won 2 Emmy Awards for my role of Opal Gardner on All My Children. I did Another World for 4 years, playing a character called Gwen Frame. I basically worked on all of them. My first big break came on a show called The Edge of Night, which is off the air now, but it was still live in those days. So Carol Burnett and Vicki Lawrence used to take their lunch break from 1 to 2 to be able to watch All My Children together at the studio while they were making the Carol Burnett show. And when Carol didn't want to do the Burnett show anymore after 11 seasons, but wanted to keep those 200 crew members who'd been so good to her all those years in work, they created Mama's Family for Vicki to star in, and they decided to invite that strange actress from All My Children to come out and be part of it. So one night my phone rang, and it was Carol Burnett inviting me to come out to Hollywood and do Mama's Family with Vicki. So I did, and I spent 20 years there. First 10 of them working on Mama's Family. And after that, I'd always wanted to direct. I directed some plays in New York City to some success, and I had observed the director on the sitcom and the soaps, and Fran Drescher was a friend of mine, and she got a series. She created a series called The Nanny, and at the end of the second season, she invited me to come and observe and let me direct one episode, the final episode of season 2. And after that, they offered me the whole next season, and I directed 75 consecutive nannies for CBS. So that took me to the next 3 years. And after that, I moved to a farm upstate New York. Don't ask me why. I think I kind of aged out of Hollywood. The parts weren't coming my way, and my last child went off to college, and I was all alone in that big house with the dog, and so I moved to the country in order to write. And so I've been writing plays pretty much steadily since 2015, and luckily some of them are getting produced. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
It's a wonderful nutshell. I'm thrilled to have you. Thank you for sharing all of that. Did you know when you were young that you wanted to be an actor? I know you went to college and were able to get your first job. Did you just know it right away when you were young?
I wanted to be a Spanish teacher, but my brother had a little theater company. He was 2 years older, and he and his friends used to put on plays in the basement of our church. And I liked his friends better than my own, really. And so they invited me to be in one of the productions. And we did it not in the church, but in the big stage at the Prudential Life Insurance building on Lake Calhoun. And the minute I did my first play, I knew that was what I really wanted to do. So I concentrated on that when I got to Sarah Lawrence, which luckily had a very strong theater department. And in fact, one of the visiting professors there put me into my first off-Broadway play called America Hurrah, a company called the Open Theater. And after that play closed after a year off Broadway, we took a European tour. It was the first time I'd been abroad. And then after that European tour, I decided that I wanted to work more commercially and not with that company any longer. So that's when I began to seriously do soaps and theater in New York.
Now, I have had many performers on the show, but no one has ever mentioned working in soap opera. Is that different than working in television? What was it like for you to be involved in soap work?
Well, no, it's television. It's all cameras. The only thing is, it's a different show every day. A different script every day. So there's you got to be able to memorize quite a lot of text. One day I think I had like 40 pages to do. Soaps were places where women were the leads. The men were there to marry us or betray us, or we used to refer to them as handbags, really. But the storylines were very strong and good for women. So that's what I particularly liked about working in them. Soap fans are very different from the fans of movie stars, because you're in their homes every day, every afternoon, while they're ironing the baby clothes and things like that. They feel they know you. They feel they're friends with you. And so the fans have always been just terrific. The time that I was on All My Children, I couldn't buy myself a beer anywhere in America.
And of course, the Emmys. What was it like to be told that you were going to be winning an Emmy, let alone 2 of them? What happened?
Yeah. Well, it was amazing. The first year I was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, and the second year for Best Actress, and I won them both years that I was on All My Children, much to Susan Lucci's probable dismay. No, it was amazing. It was quite a stunning and shocking experience, and I think it was the first year that they were televised too, during the afternoon. So, and the second year, unfortunately, I couldn't be there in person because we were shooting Mama's Family out in California at the time, and they wouldn't let me go for the day. So, yeah.
You've mentioned Carol Burnett, and there are millions of people around the world that love her. What was she like? I assume that she was somebody special in your life.
Just the best. She's just the best. Have you seen Palm Royale, by the way? That's the show on Apple TV that she's doing now at age 91 or whatever dear Carol has become. No, there was a big bouquet of flowers from her on my dressing room table every episode for 136 episodes of Mama's Family. She was just the most gracious, generous. There are quite a few people who owe her a great debt for their careers, and I'm certainly one of them.
How was it to go from New York to California to work? Did you find it a different world being out there?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I knew as the airplane was flying over LA and I looked out the window the first time that was where I wanted to really be. So as long as you're working in LA, it's fabulous. It's just when you're no longer on a network show, suddenly there are no more Christmas presents from the network, and you get dropped kind of like a hot potato, which is why why I moved to the farm, because my feelings were hurt. After all those years of acting and directing, suddenly there was no work for me, it seemed. But no, in LA you need a car. In New York you take the subway, you walk everywhere. So that was a big change. Life is easier out there to raise kids too. They can go outside and play. In New York, you have to arrange everything so closely for them, and so it was a good time of my life.
And tell us about the nanny. We can't forget about that. That must have been an amazing experience for you.
It was. I renovated a warehouse in Hollywood and created what they referred to as a waiver theater space. It was a 99-seat theater. And in order to pay for the productions, I taught acting classes. And one day, Fran Drescher showed up to take my acting class. Are we having an audio issue, or is everything okay?
No, everything's fine. Please go ahead.
Oh, good. And so we became friends. And she always said, if I ever make it, I'm going to have you direct me. And Fran is one of the few people I've ever met who actually keeps her word. And so she knew I wanted to be a TV director. And the second season, she said, if you'll commit to observing here every episode all year, I'll see that you get one episode at the end of the season. And so she did, and I directed my episode, and it got the biggest laugh spread of any of the nannies that they had done up to that point. And so on the strength of that one episode, they offered me the entire third season, and I directed seasons 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
And the last season, 6, Fran and Pete, the other co-creator, they wanted to take turns directing too, and so and I was ready to leave it after 3 years, so I did not do the final season.
Okay, Dorothy, let's hold that thought. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You have tuned into Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
One of the most common cons this time of year is the utility scam. A bad actor may call or text you claiming to be with the utility company and threaten to turn off your electricity, saying you haven't paid your bill. They may also try to steal your money and sensitive personal information through a fake home energy assessment. This ruse often includes a phony credit check, which requires you to hand over your banking information and even your social security number. They may claim they can save you money on your energy bills if you buy their discounted equipment, but all you'll get is a big credit card bill. Always check with your utility company before letting someone into your home. Even if they're wearing credentials, they may be fake. Also, utility companies won't call or text you out of the blue threatening to turn off the lights. And while they do energy assessments, you have to set them up ahead of time. They don't just send people knocking on doors. For more information on how to protect yourself, visit Better Business Bureau at bbb.org, and to report a scam, visit bbb.org/scam tracker.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, I hope you're enjoying the show. My conversation continues on with Dorothy Lyman. And Dorothy, you've gone from acting, directing, to now playwriting and writing your own plays. Well, what was that transition like for you? What's it like writing plays now?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It was an easy transition, really, because I'd done so many plays, and the first thing I really ever wrote was just a scene for my acting class that I was taking, a master class with a great teacher called Milton Katselas, who unfortunately is no longer with us, out in Los Angeles. And I'd worked my way through all the classic plays and playwrights, and so I had an idea about a scene between an older woman and a younger woman and the older woman's husband, and I wrote this 10-minute scene. And my teacher said, those two women aren't done with each other. There's another act to that play. And so I expanded it, and it became the first play I ever wrote. And we put it on in a theater in Los Angeles. not my theater, a different theater, and it ran all summer long. I mean, it got fabulous reviews, and it ran all summer long, and so it really gave me the courage to be a playwright. And at the end of that summer's run, we ended the run actually because I started to do The Nanny that summer, and that was a full-time job, so I couldn't really do the play at night and direct The Nanny in the day. So the play closed, and then it was, I think, 10 more years before I wrote another play.
One of the reasons why you're here that I think that you're excited about is that you have plays that are happening now in 2025. Tell us about that.
Yes, I have one play now at a festival here in New York City at the Hudson Guild Theater down on 26th Street. It's called the New York Winterfest Playwrights Festival. Our first performance was last night, which is why I look a little tired. And it has only 2 more performances this week, Wednesday night at 9 o'clock and Saturday at 6:45, I think. But I have a play that I wrote on about living upstate, called Upstate, which is going to be on at Theater Works in New Milford, Connecticut for the entire month of May. And I'm really looking forward to that. You know, I started to write in order to write roles for myself or women my age, because I feel that we're an underserved demographic in the entertainment business. You know, sure, Candace, you know, is working, and, you know, there are a few older women who have opportunities, but I wasn't finding them for me and my girlfriend, so I thought I'll just write plays for us, and so that's how all that came about.
For the person who's watching us now that's saying, oh my goodness, she's had an amazing career, now she's writing plays, how long does it take you to write a play? Where does the inspiration come for you to do it?
Well, the first play, the inspiration for that was an article that I read in the magazine section of the New York Times about a feminist professor at Columbia University called Carolyn Heilbrunn. And I was a great fan of her books, both her writing about feminism, but she wrote a charming murder mystery series. Her detective was an English professor. And so this article was about why she had quit her tenured position at Columbia in a huff, because they passed over her female protege for a man to give him a job instead of her protege, her female protege. So I wrote that play about an angry feminist professor and being interviewed by a young writer from the New York Times, and who is anything but a feminist. And so it's kind of a clash of ideas. And the third character in that play is the feminist husband, who, you know, is cooking dinner and picking up the dry cleaning, and, you know, doing their roles have obviously reversed. So that was the inspiration for the first play. And the inspiration for the second play was I had a wonderful working relationship with a British playwright who was we had this idea together about an old couple that wanted to go to the moon. And I'm sorry, somebody just came to my door. But he died before he could write that play. And so one night I was down in Mexico actually, and one night about 11 o'clock, it just came to me that I could write that play since my friend had died. And I sat down and I wrote that whole 10-minute play in a couple of hours. And then the third play, the inspiration came from living on a farm in the Catskills and getting to know the people in that neighborhood and feeling a great kinship to them, about a widowed dairy farmer whose family want her to sell up and get off the farm, and she's, of course, trying to hang on to it. That's the play we're going to be doing in New Milford, so I hope some Connecticut friends will come and see that in May at Theater Works. And after people saw the farm play, as I call it, even though its title is Upstate, they said, well, whatever happened to that woman? You know, she did go to Florida, but, you know, whatever happened? We wonder what happened to her there. So I wrote the sequel, and that's the play we're doing here in New York. It's called We Have to Hurry, and it takes place during the pandemic, and the old farm widow is on her balcony, and a handsome older widower is on his balcony, and the two of them have a relationship across the space. And basically the play is about him trying to persuade her to get up the courage to dress in her mask and face shield and gloves and come down in the elevator and meet him and take a walk on the beach with him, which she eventually does, and they fall in love. It's an older person love story. We're having some fun.
You're writing plays that are dealing with an older person type of genre, if you will. Are you performing in them as well, or are you writing them and then casting them yourself?
Oh, I always play the lead.
Oh, there you go. Okay. How is it for you to write it and perform in it? Do you then get a director and technical crew? How involved do you stay in the play?
You know, sometimes I direct them myself. This particular one here in New York, I brought a close director friend of mine who lives in Canada down from Toronto to direct us. I'm going to direct the farm play because it's the third production of it that I've had, so I feel confident about starring in it and also directing the cast. It's a cast of 6, and yeah, you know, I'm a director first, really, and a writer second, and luckily I'm also a producer, so I'm able to put these plays on where I think some other playwrights are not that lucky.
Well, we're here in the beginning of 2025, and you've mentioned your play that you're doing now. You've mentioned a play that's coming up in May. Do you have other plans happening in 2025? Have you even looked into 2026?
No, not really. Not really. I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other. Get this play done this week, and then in 2 weeks we're going to start casting for the farm play in New Milford, and I'll go into rehearsals with that in April. I really haven't. I usually spend most of the summer at my son's house. He has a beautiful house in France, and so generally I go over there, be with the grandkids, and no, that's about it. I have a new idea for a play, which I'm hoping I'll get around to finishing. It's about half done. It's about 5 women in the basement of a church, 5 widows.
Your advice, you're a member of the League of Professional Theater Women, the Connecticut chapter, as am I. I love it. I think you do too. Do you recommend, for a networking point of view, for somebody to join an organization? What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, you know, if you're an actor, I say find out where the best acting class is in town and get enrolled in that. Networking is completely the key to success in our business. It just can't be overestimated, the amount of opportunity that gets generated from being part of a group. And the League of Professional Theater Women / Connecticut is extremely productive. They've done readings of a couple of my plays, and I have a one-person play that I wrote about my mother, and my mother's and my relationship to my children and being a mother. It's called Violet and Me. That was her name, and I took that play to the Edinburgh Theatre Festival. Yeah, no, networking is the way to go. You know, my daughter is a big producer, Emma Tillinger-Koskoff. She produced the 2 Joker films. She worked for Martin Scorsese for 20 years. But, you know, the secret to Emma's success, I believe, is that she still is in touch with everybody she's ever met. She's just terribly good at keeping in touch with people and getting everybody's contact information, and because you never know when you might want to use that person in a project, or they might be having a project that you want to get in on. And so yes, it's very important. When I was teaching acting, I was surprised the number of people who take acting classes and want to be actors who don't really want to be looked at in some very fundamental way.
Well, we have run out of time, and I want to thank you very much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure too, my dear. And I hope I'll see you at some of the meetings.
Yes, I hope to see you too. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. In case you need to reach me, I'm at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day today. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'll see you next time.